My father was advisor to more than one president, starting with President Eisenhower, who he got to know during World War II, when my father was doing operations in Germany concerning the rocket program. My father often flew in and out of Washington, D.C. and was consulted over many, many things. For example, Kennedy consulted him during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Every president, when they first walk into the White House, suddenly gets power over the entire world empire that the United States runs. And usually there is a flock of people who surround him and immediately start urging him or whoever to get involved in some foreign adventure, oftentimes a very dangerous and even potentially fatal foreign adventure. For example, when Kennedy walked into the White House, he was presented with the proposal to do the Bay of Pigs invasion. This turned out to be a total disaster. Then they wanted him to go into Vietnam, with both feet, of course. This he resisted. He ended up dead, of course. LBJ, on the other hand, instantly leapt into Vietnam. He couldn't wait. It was his golden opportunity within days of walking into the White House. Ah, the feel of power. Surrounding all of this are these things we call think tanks. A think tank is a collection of intellectuals who seldom have much world experience outside of their precious bubbles, and they think they can figure out the entire world while sitting somewhere or dipping their dainty little fingers into some country by paying a little visit. My parents worked a lot overseas. They worked in Africa, Asia, Europe, South America. They were very deeply involved with many affairs. They would go live in a country for sometimes up to half a year at a shot. And during that time, they would get very deeply involved in associating with the people who lived there, not with other Americans. They did not hang out in think tanks at all. In fact, my father didn't belong to any think tanks whatsoever. He always thought with his own head, which is, I think, a very clever thing to do, and I wish other people would do it. Think tanks tend to operate like gangs. They have turf wars, they have secret handshakes and secret meetings they go to. A lot of the people who are very interested in conspiracies should understand these people automatically generate conspiracies because this is how you do it in grade school when you're a kid. You have your little group goes into the corner of the playground and you go, let's do this, let's do that. And then they go off and they do some mischief. These think tanks don't think about very much except making mischief. In fact, the difference between them and a gaggle of young girls in a grade school is almost indistinguishable. And they're about as mature. The think tanks are now descending upon Obama. They have all these wonderful proposals, most of which involve spending tremendous sums of money, expanding the bureaucracy, increasing the number of positions that think tankers can hold within the administration, and other goodies. So, I looked at some of these proposals today because they were leaked online by brave people who thought they were pretty obviously horrible. And Obama, unfortunately, is doing the typical thing. He thinks he can take the military, drive it over to Asia or the Middle East, and then, bing! He can control world events by killing people. And he's killing a lot of people. And they're retaliating. 5 soldiers were blown up yesterday in Iraq. We were supposed to have already pacified Iraq, and now we can leave. Only they're killing us, so we're going to stay. And we're going to take care of them. They'll not kill us once we stay there, once we show them that we are not leaving. We did that with Vietnam, with the obvious result. They finally drove us out after killing lots and lots of Americans and nearly bankrupting our country. And this is the strategy our opponents are using today against us, the exact same ones. They're bankrupting us. Let's look at these think tank proposals here. I have some paperwork from them, some graphs, charts, and pictures which tell a really interesting story. Here's the cover for the Center for American Progress's report to Obama. It shows happy American soldiers shaking hands and making friends with Afghanis. We forgot that during the Vietnam War, the people who hung out with us the most and who were the friendliest were actually Viet Cong leaders. They knew that this is the best way to get information and to track your enemy. And this is exactly what the Afghanis are doing. There's nothing different, and look what happened to us last time we tried this scheme. Over here, we see the escalation of the war. Right now, it's 38,000 Americans and 70,000 NATO people joining us in this affair. By the end of summer, we'll have over 55,000 Americans, and we hope to have over 87,000 with NATO, except Europe told us in no uncertain terms they don't want to be part of this little game we're playing. They think this is a futile war, and I think that's a realistic view. Notice I painted some fire at the feet of the soldiers here to illustrate the reality of what this recommendation is all about. The CAP recommendation for the future is not to have a reduction in soldiers, but 70,000 Americans and another 30,000 NATO who are not going to be there. Here is a CAP flowchart showing how you can have a strategically informed execution of great plans, and then the feedback is the lessons learned. So they start with a usually childish wishful thinking proposal, and they end up killing people, and the lessons are not learned. We have learned absolutely nothing. Over one catastrophe after another, the same story over and over again. Now, the Project on National Security Reform has also given Obama a proposal called Forging a New Shield. Oh boy, this is almost as good as Star Wars with Ronald Reagan. Unfortunately, this is a proposal to do an expansion for the think tankers, not for shielding America. Here is one of their proposals showing how information will travel. It looks like a computer chip. This is, you can imagine all the electronic parts there, and they have Congress off at the top, out of the loop, and they have the president to one side while they talk to each other, and the Pentagon and everything else, and they control everything. Isn't that sweet? Presidents usually fall for this. As you can see, Truman listened to his think tank, all of 10 people, during the Korean War. And then Eisenhower, who was accustomed to cooperating with large groups of people in World War II, trusted them a great deal. And it was no good. He ended up warning us about the military-industrial complex when he left. Kennedy trusted everyone for exactly 1 year, less than 1 year. Actually, it was very brief. They gave him the Bay of Pigs. They nearly destroyed him. He kicked them out. He was assassinated. On the other hand, LBJ didn't listen to anybody, and that's why he got all messed up. He wouldn't listen to us no matter how much we demonstrated against him. Nixon listened to everyone at first, and then only listened to Kissinger. He refused to talk to any of these people. He hated them. And Jimmy Carter didn't listen to them. Ronald Reagan listened to them briefly, and he got shot. Bush, on the other hand, also fell for their proposals and everything else, and he eventually kicked them out too. They all do this. On the other hand, the size of these people's think tanks, the size of these organizations has grown from 10 to over 100. As you can see, the only thing the think tanks want is to have themselves grow in power and size, even though no president listens to them very long. All presidents end up doing the same thing. They find someone they trust, and then they hand the whole thing over to them and listen to them. They never listen to the think tanks. If they do, all they do is get into foreign adventures that cause tremendous damage to themselves as well as to anyone standing around us, including our targets, whoever they may be. Obama will be no different. And so, why not just terminate the think tanks? That'll at least clean up some of the sewer in Washington, D.C., and we all want to do that, don't we? Thank you.